as Christmas was going on, oh boy, the establishment is having a epic meltdown, an epic meltdown over the attacks from the Bernie bros. Those damn Bernie bros are back. Oh my God, David Sirota writes a piece about Beto O'Rourke's voting record, and the establishment loses their mind. And by the way, I'm going to try not to curse because every time I curse, I'm getting demonetized. But if I start seeing the super chat, this is a super chat. If I start seeing the super chat going, maybe I'll drop a few F-bombs because I'd like to. This is a super chat. So David Sirota does the job of a journalist and writes what I thought was a very fair, accurate piece on Texas, soon-to-be ex-Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke. And he just does something so radical. He researches Beto's votes. There is not one thing in here that's not factual. Like, I'm not going to read you the whole story, but he goes through Beto's votes, which he voted with a lot of Republicans and some Democrats to weaken financial regulations on banks. He voted in many cases to help the fossil fuel industry, including helping us lift the ban on foreign exports of oil and gas. He voted for offshore drilling. He voted to weaken the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I mean, there's a lot of things Beto O'Rourke voted for that were anti-worker and anti-planet. Plain and simple. And there's really not that much of an excuse for him doing it because his district in El Paso is one of the bluest districts in the country. It's one of the bluest districts in the country. So it's not like David Sirota, who writes a column for The Guardian. He's a progressive journalist. He does a lot of the dirty work that many people don't, like putting in freedom of information requests, breaking news, all those kinds of things. You know, it's not like he wrote a piece like, you know, some mean girl piece, you know, attacking Beto O'Rourke's charisma or calling him a fraud or even really his opinion. These are actual votes that he cast as a, what's the term? Public servant? So it's all public knowledge. It's all public knowledge, his votes. It's just that the corporate media didn't bother to look into it. And by the way, when Beto was running against Ted Cruz, I don't live in Texas, but I said, listen, I don't think he's great. He's not progressive, but I would vote for him over Ted Cruz. That's a state election. We're talking about on a state level. But now we're talking about President of the United States. So, you know, just being better than Ted Cruz is not like your bumper sticker to become the front runner to the Democratic nomination for president. I'm sorry. I would vote for, you know, a steaming pile of shit. Oop, demonetized. I cursed. I would vote for a steaming pile of shit over Ted Cruz. Grace Ann, you're right. Ted Cruz is so bad, he made Beto look progressive. But, it's Sirota, his piece wasn't attacking him. He was saying, hey, by the way, this guy that the narrative and the corporate media is painting as, you know, the next coming of Obama, he's fairly moderate to Republican in his votes. Not to mention, he took a lot of money during the campaign from oil and gas executives. I did a piece during the election. I did a piece during the election before the Senate race that Beto was doing fundraisers with fossil fuel lobbyists. Again, that wasn't my opinion. I looked it up. I looked at, look at the calendar of events he has. I clicked on it. It says certain individuals are co-hosts donating $10,000, and then you look in the Google machine and you find out, this guy's a major fossil fuel lobbyist. For Andrew Cuomo, he's been connected to the Clintons, and Beto is having a fundraiser with him. Doesn't make Beto evil, but people have a right to know these things. Part of the 2016 progressive explosion, particularly Bernie Sanders supporters, and I always said this when I was at the Young Turks, part of it was Bernie Sanders supporters were very, very well researched. They knew Hillary Clinton's voting record. They knew who she was taking money from. Young people and older people, it's not an age thing, but young people really did their homework and know the record and the money. And Bernie Sanders' older voters certainly knew too. Oh my God, this piece is unbelievable. Inside Bernie World's war on Beto O'Rourke. It's a war! David Sirota does journalism. It's a war! And by the way, this piece, comically, was written by Jonathan Allen, a so-called reporter who, before he joined NBC News, he was working for Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Nope, not The Onion. He was literally working for Debbie Wasserman Schultz. That's Jonathan Allen right there. And Alex Seitz-Wald, an NBC, quote, reporter who used to work for Neera Tanden Center for the American Progress. And during the 2016 campaign, I could tell you because I covered it, he was known to basically, Hillary Clinton's campaign just fed him propaganda about Bernie Sanders' campaign, and Alex would very, very dutifully just regurgitate it. So this is who's writing this piece about the war waged by Bernie bros. Forces loyal to Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders are waging an increasingly public war against Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke, the new darling of Democratic activists. No, he's not the new darling of Democratic activists. He's the new darling of Democratic elites, not activists. But, neither of these writers actually talk to activists, so how would they know? The main line of attack against O'Rourke is that he isn't progressive enough, that he's been too close to Republicans in Congress, too close to corporate donors, and is not willing enough to use his star power to help fellow Democrats, and is being pushed almost exclusive by Sanders supporters online and in print. So right there, they're basically trying to knock down the report by essentially calling David Sirota a Bernie supporter. That's basically what they're doing. They're trying to kind of like bastardize and attach a boogeyman of propaganda to his. I mean, honestly, his story. I don't mean this as an attack on David. I thought it was a great story, but it was just a dull write-up of the guy's voting record. It's not like it takes a lot of legwork to look up the votes, but a public war. David Sirota's story was the equivalent. It was the written equivalent of C-SPAN. And this is a public war waged by forces close to Bernie Sanders. I could assure you that David Sirota did not consult Bernie Sanders before he wrote that piece, or did not consult Bernie Sanders. Hey, do you want me to write a hit piece on Beto? And I could assure you, Bernie Sanders could care less about Beto O'Rourke. I'm not in the man's head, but Beto O'Rourke is the hot thing now. He's not going to be the hot thing later. Trust me. Voting records and who you take money from tend to come back to bite you in the ass. Go ask Hillary Clinton. So it's just amazing. It's amazing that this was being painted as some type of war. And by the way, I'm on Twitter a lot. You probably don't see my tweets because Twitter's suppressing me too, at Jordan Sheridan. But I'm literally watching people that are Bernie Sanders supporters. They're not attacking Beto O'Rourke. They're basically saying, yeah, the guy's, he's not progressive. So we don't want him to be president. Last time I checked, Beto O'Rourke, was a congressman. His record is public. He's open to public scrutiny from journalists or voters.